What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, mindset strategist and coach, and I love sharing nuggets of wisdom about the stories that we tell each other, but more importantly, those stories that we tell ourselves. And you can join me and my special guests as we share our personal stories of strength and triumph every week here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. And tune in every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time to get real stories and tips on how to turn your story and your life around. And evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. Hello, everybody. And I'm super excited here to be with you again for another week and to introduce you to Dr. Debra Clary. Hello, Deb.
Hello.
And we are going to dive into an unbelievable episode this week. And before we get started, I just wanted to mention that this episode is sponsored by the Curiosity Curve, Debra's upcoming book being published by Fast Company in October 2025. It's all about curiosity. Isn't just a mindset, right? It's a powerful strategy for leadership, innovation, and transformation. If you're ready to unlock breakthroughs in your work and life, visit www.debraclary.com. That's Debra, Debra Clary, Clary.com, and take the complimentary curiosity assessment today. Debra, I'm so excited to have you on. You and I had a great little conversation. I followed you and was watching you on LinkedIn because I loved all the things you were doing, and I watched your TED Talk. There's so many incredible things. So thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm just going to read your bio here, if that's okay. So Dr. Debra Clary is a global speaker, author, TEDx speaker, and award-winning film producer focused on leadership, curiosity, and transformation. Her upcoming book, The Curiosity Curve, will be published by Fast Company in October 2025. You are so multifaceted, and I love that about you because it's like we're singing the same song there. I think there's so much involved in what you do on so many levels. Like it's never a straight line, is it, to get from where we were to where we are now? But all those twists and turns, I feel like, lead us right here into this moment, right? Um,
Yes.
and it's those stories, and I love talking about stories. It's all those stories. It's the story of, oh, I did this, then I did this, and then I did this, and wow, look at this. This is a culmination of my whole life story. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that's what my book was to me. It was really a culmination of all of my life's works, the singing, the this, the that, right? And for you, tell us about all those pieces and how everything came together for you.
Well, it's a big question, right? I was recently having a conversation with the CEO, and he was considering to bring me in for their executive retreat. So he says, "Tell me about yourself." And I started speaking, and I went through my entire life, and I looked down, and it was 9 minutes. And I'm like, "Wow, I have boiled this down into a 9-minute pitch."
I love
But
it.
in terms of my background, uh, after uh, after undergrad, I went to graduate school, and right out of graduate school, I started driving a route truck for Frito-Lay.
I love
So
that.
when people say they started at the bottom, I was a Teamster with an MBA.
Wow.
And of course, my parents were like, "Wait, you went to 6 years of school and you're driving a Frito-Lay route truck?" And it was something that they requested everybody to do, or they required everybody to do, because they wanted people that understood the business from the ground up. And they also wanted people that had that work ethic and would actually say, I don't care what degrees I have, I am going to go run this truck. And for me, that truck became my classroom. It's where I learned how to run a P&L. It's where I learned how to build relationship with store managers and store owners. And it really set me up so that when I was promoted into being a manager of those route drivers, I had that credibility that, hey, a week ago, she was loading her truck just like we were loading our truck. And I spent 10 years at Frito-Lay in various sales management and marketing roles. And then I left to join the Coca-Cola company. And I spent almost a decade at Coca-Cola in various sales and marketing roles. And my last role was a globally marketing role where I really learned to understand consumers' needs and also how to anticipate consumers' needs. And from there, I went to the hard stuff. I went to Jack Daniels. I went from Coke to Jack Daniels. And they mix so well
I
together
was
that
just
I
gonna
just
say
had to
that.
have both sides of that. And so I was the vice president of strategy. And while I was there, I had a moment to take a breath and say, wow, this culture, this leadership is different from Coca-Cola. And I'm like, wait, and it's also different from Frito-Lay. And I took a moment to begin to say, people are different, organizations are different. And having this drive to say, how do we always get better in terms of performance? Well, it comes back to the leader and it comes back to the culture. And so I got so fascinated with human behavior that I went back to get my doctorate in leader development and org design at George Washington. So I was working full time, going to school full time, and which meant on a Thursday night, I'd fly to DC. I'd go to school 12 hours Friday, 12 hours Saturday. I'd take the 6 a.m. flight home so I could be there when my kids woke up from sleeping. And so I got to spend the whole Sunday with them. And so after I finished and graduated, I'm like, now what? Now I have this operations, marketing, business experience, but I got this academic experience too. And I was really looking for a way to blend that. And just serendipitously, I was serving on a board. There was a board member that worked for a company called Humana, which is a $100 billion healthcare company. And he said, look, we're trying to stand up a leadership institute. And with your business background and your academic background, you'd be perfect. And of course, I said, no way am I going to healthcare. Like, I'm fun. I'm going to the Super Bowl. I'm invited to every party because I bring the snacks and the drinks. And it took about 9 months, but then they convinced me that this was the right place for me to be. So I spent the last 15 years of my career at Humana, working and really developing culture and developing executives. And
Wow.
so then I left, and I left because my CEO asked me a profound question. And it was a moment of a question that turned into a movement for me. And in a meeting, he asked me, do you think curiosity is innate or can it be learned? Man, I was curious, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've done a lot of research, but I've never researched something like that. So the next week was the 4th of July. I took the week off and I just dug into everything I could find, all the literature, anything that was possible to read on the topic of curiosity, I was trying to uncover. So that next Monday, I went back to work and I said, guess what? Curiosity can be learned. And he looked at me like, what is she talking about?
He forgot about it.
He had long forgotten the question. And so, but because of that research, I began to realize that curiosity has a immense power to transform relationships and people and organizations. And so now I've been on this path for the last 2 years of going deeper in understanding the power of curiosity to transform.
That's amazing. I love that one. And isn't it unbelievable how that one poignant question at the right point in time for you can really spark such a revolution like it did in your life? Um, and it's one of those things that I talk about it too because it is more than a mindset. Um, in my book, I actually, you do the subtitles in your book, and my subtitle when I was talking about curiosity is curiosity didn't kill my cat, right? Because it actually is part of our brains and it can rewire our brains, which is why it's so powerful.
Yes. And that saying, curiosity killed the cat, I think is taught to every child. And, don't be curious. And I wrote it in my book that's coming out in October with Fast Company. And the editor pushed me and she said, I need you to cite that. And I go, my mother told me, Miss Erickson told me. She goes, I'm sorry, I need you to go and cite that. Well,
Wow.
something quite interesting came out of it. Curiosity killed the cat is only the first part of the sentence.
Really? Oh, I can't wait to hear the rest.
Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. William Shakespeare, 1858. No,
No way.
1589.
Wow.
And it like, wow, what if we were taught as children that curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back? Our lives would be immeasurably different. So I am so fortunate that that editor pushed me to go cite it.
Me too, because that changes the whole entire thing. And isn't that funny? The perspective to only get half the story or half the statement, right? And that can change the course of, like you said, of a child's life. Oh, curiosity killed the cat, but they forgot about the second half.
Yeah, but think about our lives today. We get half stories. If we're listening to media, social, or whatever, is that we're not always getting the full story. And then we jump to a conclusion and we're off to the races. Right. And
So
so the
true.
power of kind of relaxing the mind and saying, what else is here? What is not being said, or what might I be missing? That's the power of curiosity to transform.
I love that. And I love what you're saying too, because I feel like that whole good question and good out, we're much like computers, right? When we ask ourselves a question, the brain has to give us an answer. So what you just said is, hey, I wonder what else is possible here is one of my favorite questions to ask yourself. What else is possible that I haven't seen, or that any of those, I wonder what's going on inside of them that they just said that. It puts you in such a different place instead of our knee jerk reaction.
Yeah, and sometimes people can be put off by continuous questioning. And what I have found if I'll start with something like, "Oh, that is so interesting. Oh, I want to learn more. What about this?" You know what I mean? You're giving them you're not interrogating them. You're saying, "I am so interested in what you're saying and I want to learn more." It puts them at ease to say, "Oh, I think she really does want to know this."
I love that. Yeah, because then they're like, why is she firing me with questions? But that's what a good executive coach does is we ask the poignant questions. It's what your boss did years ago that didn't even know he was doing, because that's what sparks the wheels going, right? And starting to
Yes.
like lay the groundwork. But I love that something simple can just change our whole perspective, because when you can, but I think the problem is we know it how good it is for us, but we forget to do it. We
And
forget.
we forget to do it for good reasons, like especially if you're in the work environment, you have time constraint and you've got huge goals that you have to make. And guess what? You're probably the expert in the area. And so to save time, we just give an answer without thinking about what is that doing to the person I'm talking to. In the sense if we can back up and say, oh, I can see this is really important to you. How are you thinking about solving it? Have you solved something like this before? You begin to build their confidence that you like, wait, I trust you to go solve this problem.
I love it. I love it. And it works in all aspects of your life. I feel like if you can adopt that with every relationship in your life, it works great as in a parenting role too, right? Like especially when I always say to my husband, like, when somebody's acting like, their least lovable is when they need to have understanding and more love, right? The same thing happens. You can parlay that into the workforce.
Yes. One of the main questions I think parents ask children, and particularly teenagers, is what were you thinking? Now, if we were we typically approach it like, what were you thinking when you backed the car out of the, hit the garage? Versus saying it with a really open mind, like, help me understand how you were thinking about this, what was going on. And when you really open it up like that, and the truth is, children and teenagers, their brains aren't fully formed yet, and so things are not connected, and so things happen in a way that seems so logical. But as a parent, when you say, help me, take me through what was happening,
Yeah,
because
that's
I want to
powerful.
know, I want to understand you.
Yeah, it's so different. That same phrase, it's just the intonation. It's how you said it, right? Was your intention behind that phrase. I talk a lot about the intentions behind our stories. Um, and getting them to, and yes, their brains, I have two 20 somethings here in my house. Their brains are still not formulated until they're at least 25, and some younger, some take a little bit longer. But it's getting that reflective, right? It also it works for anybody you're having. It's getting them to reflect back on, yeah, what was I thinking? Oh, here was my thought process. And in the uncovering, you can discover something beautiful in there.
Yes, yes, so well said.
So, and it's just that little shift though. When I tell people, all the time, it only takes that one little shift. We don't realize how powerful our words are. As a singer songwriter, I love words, right? And you don't realize how powerful that one little shift can really make in somebody's life.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So, talk to us a little bit. I love that you say in your bio, I read it here in the paper that you were, um, well, first of all, you've done so many cool things, but you really embrace creativity. And I love that about you. And you were at one point, you've done stand up comic routines before. And I think it's very pertinent in the boardroom because we need to have some sense of humor, right? To add some brevity sometimes. How does that affect your work today?
Yeah, so how I got into stand-up comedy, well, it was first off, it had been a dream my entire life. So even though my parents were, you need to go to business school, you need to get a job, all this stuff, like in the back of my heart, it was like, I really want to be a stand-up comic. And so I started right out of grad school. I was actually at Frito-Lay, but on the weekends I was doing, open mics. And my dad said, well, I'm going to come listen. And my comedy is very clean. And after the show, my dad said, I want you to live your dream, and I want you to know I love you, but you're just not that funny.
Oh no. He
And
just
but he was speaking the truth, right? It was
yeah.
I'm humorous, I can tell great stories, but in terms of that kind of comedic, I
Hmm.
realized that he was right. Now, what I did with that is that I took that all that I had learned about being on the stage, at a comedy club, is that those people have paid to come laugh. But if you're doing a keynote, they're not coming to laugh. They're coming to learn and to be entertained. And so when I put a comedy into my keynotes and I get a big laugh, they go, "Oh, she is so funny." But I wouldn't be funny in the right. And so it's kind of
Right.
knowing where's your real gift. And so I was able to transcend that into another platform.
I love that. There's so much to be learned on the stage. That is our schooling right there. Like as a performing songwriter for many years, if you can be on stage like that, you learn how to think on your feet. And before that, like you, I was in sales and marketing for a big corporate company. You had to learn to think on your feet. That was one of the best qualities of a good salesperson, right? They can think on their feet, they can come up with the answer. Um, and I feel like stage trains you for all that
Yes,
and then some.
it does. It really does. And you learn what works and what doesn't work. You learn you're going to make mistakes. And even though I've been at this for a long time, I still mess up on stage. And it's like, that's okay. We're human. And you just keep going.
And that makes them like you better.
Yes.
Right? We
Yes.
become more relatable. Um, yeah, and it's that learning to have that flexibility. I feel like flexibility in thinking, flexibility and with your when you can let that all go and just let what's in you flow out of you. That's when all the good stuff, all the beautiful moments come, right? The unexpected.
Yes. Yes.
And I love that about being on stage. I'm sure you do too. And it's a give take like anything else. Whether I'm doing a keynote, you're doing a keynote, or I'm doing a seminar here on Zoom, you still need that audience. And I don't. think that unless you've done it, you realize how much of the performance that really is the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone just recently gave me a compliment how I was interacting with the audience. And I thought about it like that comes from stand-up comedy because you have to read the room, and the rooms are typically small. So now you're on a stage, even if it's 3,000 people, you've got people you're reading in the audience like, wait, I don't think that landed, or wait, they really got that. I'm gonna continue on that path. And I think I got that from being in a comedy room.
I love that. I got that same skill. I can read a room impeccably, which is why I need to see my audience if whether I'm on Zoom or not. Right, because being on stage, you have to get good at that because you have to know where am I going next, you know? And my music partner would always poke a joke at me like she's always changing the set list because I'm always reading the room.
Love it. I love it. You're trying to give the audience the best that you have.
Yeah, I think that's a superpower. I really do, is being able to read that room, assimilate, and be like, you know what? Like you said, I'm going to hang longer on this, or we're going to move to the next topic. I've lost him on this, or whatever. I love that. Love
Yes.
that. All right, we're going to break real quick. Everybody, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Dr. Deb. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm here with Dr. Deb, and we are having an amazing conversation. I love all that history on you with stand up comedy and how that weaves into your work today. Now, one of the other really cool little known facts about you is that you put together your own one woman show, an off Broadway show. Tell us about that. That is so powerful. I love how creative you are.
Yes. Well, thank you. So during COVID, I was a part of a mastermind group of other women executives around the country. They all work for different companies, and we would support each other every month on a Zoom call. You know, what's working, what's not working, what are your hopes, and what are your dreams. And in we could continue to do this. We loved it so much. And in 2022, August of 2022, they said, we're all coming to Louisville, Kentucky, where I live, because we have something to celebrate. I love a good celebration. I said, well, come on. And we're toasting bourbon and we're having the best time. And they said, well, we're celebrating Deb. I go, I, I didn't do anything. No, I'm sorry. I didn't do anything. They go, oh, we forgot to tell you. We took your idea of a one woman show. We pitched it to a producer in New York. Oh, and you're booked. You're booked.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, I was just kidding. I don't want to do what they go, no, it's September 23rd of 23. So get writing.
Oh my
And I tried to get out of it, and they like, no, you're doing this. And
God.
so I started writing, and I showed it to a couple of playwrights in New York, and they were very gracious, but they said, this sucks. And they go, you wrote a keynote. I go, yeah, I know how to write a keynote. They go, this is not going to play in New York. And so I started learning language I'd never heard before. Find someone that can adapt it to stage. It needs to be more theatrical. I found a sound engineer, and just went on and on. I started like surrounding myself with people that knew theater, and they began to work with me. I mean, they would say, I need you upstage. And I'm like, what's upstage? And they go home and they're like, "Ay, yeah, yeah." And I go, come on. And all right, okay, I can learn this. I know I can learn this. And so that's how that came together. We did 6 shows in Indianapolis, and then 2 in New York, which we sold out. And then I did 2 in Louisville, which we sold out. And this one woman show is called A Curious Woman. And it's about my life in the 80s and 90s, being a Frito-Lay route driver and just kind of being in corporate America as a woman. And again, it was a comedy. It was not pejorative. I didn't put anybody down. It was more like this was my experience, and it was funny. And then motherhood, and how what I learned from my children that I would bring into the business world. Like
Mhm.
I would just learn lessons from them, like, oh, this applies to things in business. And so that's what the show is about. And then whoops. And in March of last year, we closed the show, and then I started writing my book. The book is called the Curiosity Curve, and that book is about my life, 40 years of experience, but also my primary research I did in partnership with a research team to really understand the impact curiosity can have on organizations. And the research question was, what is the relatedness between performance, leadership, and curiosity? And in my book, you'll find that there is a direct relationship between those three variables. So, meaning that if a leader creates a curious culture, we're going to drive different performance. And who doesn't want that?
Right? I love that. A curious culture. Because you're changing everybody's brains, really. You're restructuring the brain like we talked about. You're reprogramming everybody's brain to look for different opportunities. Look for opportunities, become curious about what's around them, curious about each other's perspective. Because I feel like when you set that groundwork, um, and that stage, if you will, of safety and vulnerability to share that innovative idea, it changes everything.
It does. And there, most people think curiosity is a soft skill, but we've demonstrated that it actually has a business performance. It will drive it will drive results in the business world or in an organization. And so it is something that every leader, every manager needs to know if they want to create an environment where people showing up and they're thriving.
I love that. And who doesn't want that? They just don't know how to do it, right?
Yeah, and the truth is that we are, as children, we're going to naturally curious because there's stuff around us that we just don't know about. Matter of fact, children ask 296 questions a day, right? And
Wow.
how we interact with those questions will really determine the trajectory of that child. Meaning that if you are a parent that will try to engage in the question, and even if you don't know the answer, you're letting them know that this is really important and I really want to understand it and learn with you. There's a significant difference between that child and the child that doesn't have that. There was a study done by a group of neuroscientists out of London that demonstrates the differences between the trajectory of those children.
Wow. I love that study. I got to read that. That's amazing because
Yeah,
they feel valued, right?
they feel valued, and they also know, like, wait, my mom or my dad, they don't know it either. So I'm not stupid. Nobody knows it, so we're going to go find it out as well. What was interesting in this study, I love reading the footnotes. I think that's where kind of the jewels are, the things that there's kind of like a throwaway. And in this study by these neuroscientists, they cited that in this study, 89% of the time a child has a question, it goes to the mother. Mother, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The 11% of the time they ask the father, what does the father say? Go ask your mother.
Mother?
And so, like when I'm doing this in a keynote, I'll say, come on, guys, try to answer the question. And women, try not to correct him.
Right. Offload that 11% of your workload, right? Like get them to
Yeah.
engage. I love that. That is so powerful and so true, right? It's like, and it's all in how you answer it, and I just love that. I love to geek out on neuroscience and I can tell you do too. I could
Indeed.
spend all day looking up research. And that's the cool thing about writing a book is that you get to look up the research and you get to footnote it and you get to cite it and do all those cool things. I can't
Yeah.
wait to get my hands on your book.
Oh, well, thank you. The thing about it is that, I'm similar to you, Carrie. Like I can go deep. I love the research. My children will say, "What'd you do Friday night?" I go, "Oh, I found the best research." I go, "Mom, please don't tell that to anybody else." But, I could really geek out on it. But the thing about curiosity is that curiosity is on a continuum. And so if you are too curious, like if you're spending your Friday and Saturday nights and you're going really deep and you take no action, it's one of those like, all right, am I in a good range? And on the other hand, if you're on the continuum of really low, then you're not coming up with new ideas, innovation. You're not activating your brain. So it's like my point is that you got to find a nice balance between searching and also then taking it into action.
Yeah, I love that. That midpoint, right? That mid-range, moderation for everything. But still, I get what you're saying because people can get hung up on making a decision, right? They want to buy a new fridge. The next thing you know, they're looking at research on fridge. Just pick one. You're probably not going to get that one wrong. But yeah, it can cause overthinking, I think, if you take it too far to that one extreme. So I like what you're saying about finding that happy medium.
Yes. And in addition to this research, we came up with 4 curiosity factors, and we actually created a validated assessment. And
Ooh.
so you take this assessment, and it's on my website that you had mentioned in the beginning. And the beauty of that is you begin to understand where your curiosity lies. Like, how do you approach information? And the beauty of it is you also find out how other people approach information.
Mm.
And either that be a spouse or it could be a team member. And I'll give you an example of this is one of the factors is exploration. And so exploration is someone that is, well, oh, I wonder about this. Oh, I wonder about that. We should really check that out. Well, if you're working with someone that likes to be focused engagement, meaning like, all right, let's choose something and go make it happen. You can see where you have this friction. But when you both know, like, wait, are he or she's going to approach it this way, I approach it that way. The more we understand about ourselves and others, the more collaboration, the better collaboration we can to get to innovation.
Ooh, I love that. Yes. And again, opening that space where it's okay to be vulnerable because there's no innovation without vulnerability, Brené Brown said. Because understanding each other makes me say, oh, okay, I can actually, she gets me. She knows I'm going to, look into it a little deeper. I can explain myself and feel safe to come up to my conclusion, which might be different than her conclusion. I love that.
Yes. And when I've done an entire organization has taken the assessment and we begin to debrief it. We just did 300 leaders and we did them by their teams. They now had language to put around it. So when someone is coming at them, they'll say, look, right now I'm in task mode, I'm in focused engagement because this is a timeline on this. So can you come here with me versus like, I don't need you exploring right now. But the reverse as well is the same. And so it's just, in any assessment you do, and there's so many out there, the whole purpose of it is self-awareness and awareness of others. And when we have those two things, we could do anything.
Yeah, that's a beautiful statement. And you're giving them the tools, you're giving them the common language so that everybody's on the same page. And it just makes understanding somebody else so much easier when you have that little methodology,
Yes, yes, exactly.
right?
And since curiosity can be learned, so you can improve in your, the 4 factors. And then in addition to that, it's contagious. So if you're around people that also want to be curious, you raise the level of everybody's around you.
I love that. It's contagious. Yeah.
Yes, it is
A,
contagious. You
finally, a
think
good
about
contagion.
you think about if you a friend calls you up that's highly curious and so you want to go have a drink. You're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to learn so much. We're going to have the best conversation." Versus if you have a friend that's going to come and what have you been doing lately? Oh, not much, or they want to gossip. It's and there's room for gossip and all of that type stuff, but it's this when you surround yourself by people that are continuously learning and connecting, it's like those are the people I want to have a drink with.
Yeah. Amen to that. I love that. We're going to break really quick and we'll be right back. I know you guys are hanging on Dr. Deb's every word. We'll be right back on Look for the Good. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Look for the Good. This episode is sponsored by The Curiosity Curve, Debra's upcoming book being published by Fast Company in October 2025. It's all about how curiosity isn't just a mindset, it's a powerful strategy for leadership, innovation, and transformation. If you're ready to unlock breakthroughs in your work and life, visit www.debraclary.com. That's Debra Clary, CLARY.com, and take the complimentary curiosity assessment today. Welcome back, everybody. This conversation's been incredible. I love how we were talking about all things curiosity and really bringing it into the workplace and giving tips and tools and structure and common language so everybody knows where they stand. I'm curious to know, no pun intended, a little bit more about the 4 curiosity factors. Let's talk a little bit about that and how you implement that in a company. I just love that.
Yeah, so as we were doing this research for the book, one, we realized there was a lot of research out there, but not specifically for organizations or corporations. There was some things about, children and education. And so we went deep in creating this research. So this research that you'll see in the book is all based on our primary research. And what we discovered that under curiosity, and how we describe curiosity, is about truly being interested in self and others. Because we believe that what people want more than anything is to be seen, heard, and valued, right? So that's the root of this research so that we can get after that. And so we decided that as we looked through all of the data and did our own research is that there are 4 factors that you will find in our assessment. The one is exploration, inspirational creativity, focused engagement, and openness. Now, we all have all 4 of these factors, but they may vary depending on what work that we're currently doing, and it also varies depending on who we are around. So if we are in a curious culture, if we have a leader that is curious, then these will move up and down. The good thing is curiosity is contagious and curiosity can be learned. So when we think about exploration, you're working with somebody that has this mindset of exploration because they're thinking about, wow, I wonder what if. So when you hear someone talking like that, you're like, okay, they are going big and they're wanting to see all possibilities out there. They don't necessarily want to execute all that's out there, but their joy comes from saying, what have we not considered here? Now, inspirational creativity is one in which people begin to make connections. So they might be reading, a science journal, and then they might be reading a comedy book or something, and they begin to make connections. So they get inspired by listening to, bringing disparate things together. So that's called inspirational creativity is, oh, I'm making these connections in the world.
Mm.
Focused engagement is you're working with someone that has this factor because they'll say things like, all right, we need to put a project plan together. We need to understand step by step how are we going to get this done. And then the last one is openness to new ideas. And openness is when people approach you with something that's new and different, a possibly different way to solve a problem, and they're they are open to all that could drive the good in that company. So you're working with someone that has, this openness is the ask questions like, what have we not tried that we should have tried? What are we not asking that we should be asking? So they're digging deeper to understand what's missing here. So those are the 4 factors. And when you take the assessment, you'll get a score for each of those, and then you'll get a total score in terms of your level of curiosity.
I love that. So everybody's got some to some degree, right? It's not that we're missing one thing. We've got some. Um,
Yes.
and so how do you develop your training around that? Are you enhancing the pieces that need to get better? Does it depend on which level of leadership they are, that which skills pertain to them more so than somebody who is not a leader?
Yes. The first thing we do is we start off with understanding current state. So current state of the individual, their team, and then the entire organization, right?
Wow.
So we help them understand, like, if they are very high on the curiosity curve and they're working in an environment that's very low, they're probably frustrated every day.
Ooh,
And then
wow.
vice versa. So if you are low total score on curiosity and you're working in an environment where they are just out there, you're like, oh my gosh, we never get anything done. You're probably also frustrated. And so the power of the tool is understanding current state, and then what is the desired state? Where does the team want to go? And of course, we always start with the science that there is a direct relationship between curiosity and performance. and who doesn't want to increase performance. So now that we know that, now let's talk about how do we create a culture of curiosity. And so we have a workshop around that, and most of it is rooted in the power of asking a question. It's rooted in the intention, and it's rooted in the mindset. Now we have a lot more details that go into that, but that would be the number one thing that we work on is suspending judgment and asking questions that you truly want to know. There are two types of questions. There's genuine questions and there's a non-genuine question.
Yeah.
A genuine question is rooted in, I really want to know what Carrie's talking about here. And I also recognize that she has experiences that I don't, right? And I'm really interested in learning. A non-genuine question is, it's like it's kind of like an insult disguised as a question. It's like you're leading the witness. So we've all seen these shows on TV where lawyers say, where were you the evening of? They already know the answer to it, but they're just trying to like get you to trip up. That's toxic. That's being in an environment where we're not seen, heard, and valued. So we really talk about the differences in genuine and non-genuine questions, and we want to stay in the genuine column as much as possible. And that's with the people you work with, but it's also with your family, with your children, those that you love.
I keep thinking that it so applies to every single aspect of your life, right? Especially, when it comes to, our family of origins, right? When we get back together with them, we all tend to go back to that other state. Keeping this curiosity mindset can really help people manage those relationships so much better because we have got these preconceived notions, right? We walk in with a preconceived notion about who we think somebody is or what they're like, especially people that we've known for years. And when we can find a way to just, let that go and change that mindset to curiosity, like, I wonder why they act that way, or I wonder what's going on, right?
And it's true for ourselves, Carrie. Like we think we know ourselves, and then something
Mm.
triggers us, and you're like, why is this bothering me? So it's asking yourself questions too. Wait, I want to show up. My future self wants to be different than my current self. And right. And so why is this bothering me? And then the next time it happens, how do I want to show up?
I love that. It's so important that we embrace that because we can learn so much about understanding ourselves and just without even trying so hard, just having that turning that curiosity mindset to ourselves, which is why I've kind of trained myself to ask myself better questions, which is what I talk about in the book.
Yes. I grew up with two brothers, and they used to say to me, the world doesn't revolve around you. You're not the center of the universe. And as I became an adult, I said, yes, it does. Right? Unless I know thyself, I can't know others. So I'm quick to remind them that this book is coming out and they'll have to read it so that they know I am the center of the universe and they're the center of their universe. And we got to get that right in order to be with one another.
It's so true. And we say that to kids. We shouldn't say that to kids because kids are right. They are the center of their own universe and they get that just like they just naturally get curiosity and creativity and that stuff gets squeezed out of them, I feel like, in school. Um, yeah, it's reignited that spark. And when we do it ourselves and we can come to terms with, hey, I wonder why that's bothering me or why that person's comment triggered me, then we give everybody else permission to embrace their own curiosity, right?
Yes. Yes. And it also just demonstrates that we are still learning. At any age, I was triggered this morning by my tax attorney, and I'm like, all right, you need to calm down. You figure out what he needs and get it done, and figure out why that bothers you. And I won't go on air, but I know why it bothers me. But it's a sense of we continuously are learning about ourselves, and the reason that is because the world around us is continuously changing.
Yeah.
Right. And so then we have to change with the environment around us, and how we're going to respond to that.
I love that. And that right back to what we said earlier about the being flexible in our thought. I heard something recently that said, mental health really isn't about being happy. It's about being flexible, which is exactly what you're saying. It's learning, teaching our brain that flexibility, asking those questions, getting it to dive deeper, because it will, unless we just let it, run us crazy with that monkey mind with all those other questions that don't serve us. Like, why do you always do that? Or why can't you get anything right? It's getting rid of those little questions that we ask ourselves and replacing it with a beautiful question of, I wonder what else is possible here.
I mean, thoughts have energy.
Powerful, powerful. And they can track that, and they can measure that, right? On an EEG, they can measure your thoughts and the power and how it interacts with your body, and then affects everybody else. Because I think you said before that a bad mood is more contagious than a sneeze. You were quoting somebody.
Yeah, Daniel Goldman out of Harvard. It's like moods are contagious.
Yeah, they are.
So
Absolutely.
curiosity is contagious. A bad mood is contagious. And so be careful who you're around, and be mindful of your own mood. Because we can choose our mood. We can choose our mood.
We can choose our mood and be mindful of what you're spreading, right? We have a chance to be super spreaders in all the right ways now.
I have grandchildren. They're twins. They're 6, and they were just recently here, and they were getting ready to leave. They were a little sad. They were going back to DC, and my 6-year-old Elizabeth said to me as she was leaving, she said, "You are the most fun person I know." And I went, "Oh my gosh, that's the best compliment I've ever gotten." I'm still like, warms my heart. Like, oh, she's going to remember me as fun.
I love that. You're like, can I quote you on that? Because I bet our own kids didn't say that about us.
Yeah. And so it's like, how do we want to be known?
Yeah. What is our legacy that we're leaving behind, right? And that's that little story that she'll have in her head about you. I don't know. What do your grandkids call you?
Honey,
Oh,
because I'm sweet and sticky.
that's so sweet. I love that. So they're going to always have their honey stories about
Yes.
you, right? And that's a beautiful legacy to leave behind. I love it. Well, I am so sad that this is ending, because this is an amazing conversation. I feel like we could talk yet another hour on all of this curiosity topic. I love it.
Yes. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. And remember, everybody, go and do the assessment, right? It's right on Deb's website at debclary.com. That's Debra Clary, Debra. We love to spell things on the radio, by the way, Clary.com. And go do the assessment, figure out which one you lead towards. And remember that you can always change your mood. You can always change your mind. And I love all these tips that Dr. Debra has dropped here for us today. So thank you again for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Carrie.
And remember, everyone, it is never too late to live your best story. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Carrie Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Carrie directly, visit carrierowan.com for more details.